if they show up, but I'll call to order the work session at 9:32. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you. Well, thank you for allowing us to come visit again. We received the application, and so this is a time where we come back and visit communities after the team goes through the application, just to get clarification on certain questions that we may have on the application. We will also give you a chance to update the application, and then we will make a determination as to whether we will be bringing in Buchanan as our next Main Street community. So this meeting is really for us to just get a better understanding of where the city's at, clarify some questions in the application, and then we can kind of go from there. So it's nothing formal, it's just a conversation. So I guess just starting out, can you tell us a little bit about kind of the efforts the city has made along with the nonprofit to bring Main Street here?
None. I'll start the conversation.
I think I can speak to that. So it really goes to kind of perspective. Where was Buchanan several years ago? Vacant, nothing going on Main Street, no boots on the ground, and an opportunity, kind of a diamond sleeping in the rough, you know. Over the last several years, Buchanan started to become discovered. Now, our history is we were kind of a company town without being a company town. We're Clark Equipment, 3,500 jobs. Life was grand. Everybody never really had to leave Buchanan. You know, it was a really great American small town. And like so many other places, those jobs went away pretty abruptly and pretty recently, like 90s. This was like not long ago. So imagine the devastation and the difficulty in sorting out kind of the path forward. So over the last several years, Buchanan's made some pretty bold decisions. One of them was to opt into the cannabis laws of Michigan, which brought large investments to Main Street. Also, investors saw Buchanan as a value, and they began buying properties, and all of a sudden there were boots on the ground again, and there were storefronts. And so that was really kind of about the time I came in for about 3.5 years ago, and basically the first thing we did is that document right there in front of you, Vision for Buchanan. So Vision for Buchanan, it was, you know, we worked with Andrews University 5th year architecture students for several months. There was intense community engagement, full meetings in City Hall, focus groups. We met with high school students, we met with seniors, we met with business people, and 3 things emerged from that. And one was do more of what's working downtown because it's working. And so we have begun to feed that, and Buchanan has emerged as this really great opportunity, this value that's kind of on the economic map right now in Southwest Michigan. It kind of has the eye and ear of the metro areas too. So we're amidst a very significant revitalization right now, and so we're trying to feed it, and we're trying to kind of orchestrate the symphony. So now we're talking about uses, like we press pause on cannabis, let's go after restaurant and retail, we got a bookstore, you know. We're trying to get the landlords to hold out for the uses that are going to be sustainable. So all that's happening. Couple noteworthy things downtown, very, very symbolic. Our largest vacant building, it was kind of vacant for 40 years, is now back to life, kind of is a very dynamic incubator and future restaurant of the River St. Joe brand, which will come downtown, which is huge branding for us. And you know, we have other buildings like Delivery, again, 40 years, 25 years vacant, in this case, now this amazing, I think, comeback story on that building where we now will have overnight stays and another restaurant facility kind of right in the backdrop of our already curated and energized common area. So, I mean, we are, I think, at a perfect time for Main Street. The other two items that were addressed in vision are really about how to bring young people to put roots back in the community and how to get investors to double down on Buchanan. So we're feeding this St. Joseph Riverfront Master Plan idea. How can we harness our riverfront with public access? And finally, the North Side neighborhood, which is perhaps our most vulnerable neighborhood, that we are trying to really instill quality of life in that neighborhood and get residents to become first-time home buyers there. So it's, I mean, we're at a really good point. The leadership has been kind of in lockstep with us and given us the support as the economic development team to really be aggressive, go after grants. And so I think we're in a real good place to launch Main Street.
I'd like to clarify my statement about none. It's not open meetings. It's not downtown business owners. It's not funded by a DDA because we destroyed the DDA. It's Days Avenue. That's all they concentrate on. It's one or two property owners. That's all they concentrate on. The glossy magazine you have was because they didn't go to Brazil. They think that's the Bible. It's not. It's a fantasy magazine. We don't have the money for it. But the fact that there's no open meetings, it's a 501, but we're funding it as taxpayers. So I don't feel it fills any of the criteria, because as a taxpayer and as a commissioner, this was thrown together because the commission destroyed the DDA. But we don't get any answers. There is no open meetings. We don't know where the funding's coming from because it's private. So I don't think it fills any of your criteria at all, because it's usually funded by the DDA, and the ones that aren't are a completely separate entity from the city. And I'm not down here to be a horse's butt.
You're being one. I think you should be ashamed of yourself.
Well, that's fine.
For showing
I'm entitled.
and
I'm entitled. At least your other two commissioners didn't show up. The thing about it is I might be being a butt, but I don't see the long term what it's going to do to the city when it's already closed up as tight as it is. They can do business with 2 people attending. That's how they wrote up their bylaws. Now, they have 11 committee members on it, or that's what they had on it. But if 2 people show up, they can conduct business. Now, I'm a really rough messenger, but on the other hand, I can't sit by and let him blow his horn about what he's done when it's not that case. The bookstore and most of the businesses that are in town have nothing to do with the DDA or Main Street. I'm sorry. You know, and I'm speaking for the other people that don't come down here and go rah-rah because Main Street is doing everything for 1 or 2 business owners. So, I mean, I had to say it. I didn't really want to come down here. I got way more important places I need to be, but somebody else has got to speak up, you know, for what this is. Now, I've contacted you guys, and I never got any real responses from you. I'm used to that. No, I didn't. It all got referred back to Ashley. So, I mean, that's where I'm at. So, I had to say it. I had to get it off my chest, and that's where I stand on it as a commissioner. But you have 4 commissioners that don't feel like me at all, and they're going to do what they want to do. But the independents got to speak up occasionally. And I think I'm trying to deliver this as friendly as I possibly can. You know, sometimes the truth really hurts. I really hate the idea that there's no open meetings and it's privately funded. But it's not privately funded. They're using the city of Buchanan, you know, to back themselves up. We got 2 employees that are operating Main Street on a real regular basis. So That's where I stand on it, Tim. It's where I've always stood on it. So
back in 2019, we dissolved our DDA because our DDA had been, I don't know how long they'd been around, but their mission had run out. And they had become really inefficient and ineffective. All they did was argue about the simplest of things. They weren't accomplishing anything. And like I said, the DDA is supposed to have a mission, and they didn't have one. So we decided to move on. And we, I think Ashley can attest, we had a very long process of choosing the folks we wanted on the board of Live Buchanan. And we have wonderful people who have been previous business owners in Buchanan, who are active business owners in Buchanan, who care about our community, and who volunteer a ton of hours to make it successful. And it has been successful. And to say otherwise is not factual.
the DDA was destroyed for political reasons. It wasn't dysfunctional, it was political. And you guys, and I've been around the state, they were always put out of business because of politics, not because they're dysfunctional. People don't want to do the work, and they don't want to agree, and they think they're giving up a boatload of money. The DDA was very functional. When they got thrown out, they had $300,000 in their account that couldn't be accounted for. Okay, but we had a mayor and we had a chief of police that was city manager that thought they were going to cut a fat hog and get a bunch of money. Well, they really hurt the city of Buchanan because we need a DDA for grants, and we need a DDA to sponsor this, to oversight this. So, I mean, you know where I'm coming from. And I mean, I know they really want the application to go through, but I really want to put it out there that I don't really feel the city of Buchanan has lived up to what they need to live up to, because there's not really any oversight. Because the first commissioner we had on there doesn't even attend the meetings. He's not even here today. He shows up when he feels like it. So the mayor had to take over the responsibilities. They threw me off all the committees because they don't like me doing what I do, bringing up the questions that need answers, that don't get answers. So it doesn't bother me to be the fall guy. It doesn't bother me at all. But I want you to really, and that's why I've reached out to you a couple times, you know, and that's why Alan has reached out to you a couple times. We're not negative people. We know how it worked, and we know why it was disbanded, you know, and you can paint over it, and you can't tell the same story long enough. So you get the vast majority of people that come down here to believe you, but that's not based on truth.
It doesn't really matter what the truth is for the history, right? That's the history. Now it's moving forward. And I believe I have talked to you about the fact that for the nation, because this is a nationwide program, a majority of them don't have DDAs. They're actually nonprofits.
Okay.
And we do have, National always does a trend survey to figure out where budgets come from for these types of organizations and communities. And in fact, those nonprofits are a majority funded by the cities that they are located in, even though they're a nonprofit, because that's just the sustainability of the funding mechanism that can be used.
And I think also the city sees a value in the economic development arm and what the Main Street programs are doing.
Yeah.
So
and we've had conversations too, you and I have.
Right. I think their time is really important, so I'm sure you have lots of other topics that you'd like to go over with us. So.
But if I can just say one more thing though. So when I started getting involved down here in 2018, we had no economic development department in our city. And it's one of the things that I pushed for the most. It was one of the things I wanted the most, because we didn't have anyone selling our community. And we always wondered, why is nothing happening here? And so one of the first things we did was create an economic development department. And I can tell you this, the city, believe it or not, is very much behind the work that they've done because they've been successful. All you have to do is drive from one end of town to the other. And we're very much behind the Live Buchanan because of the people that are on it who are committed and care and have been successful so far.
So another question is, what value does the city see in having Main Street here? I mean, you kind of touched on it with, your comments.
Well, I think, the biggest thing for me is opening doors to resources that we don't currently have, and there's things that we don't know, and we're all smarter when we work with a larger group of people, so.
For everything.
So having resources, not only for funding, which is huge in itself, but just learning best practices, being able to talk to other people who are doing the same things. We're all facing the same thing. People are moving away from Michigan, we're losing young people. We have to figure out how to keep them, how to employ them, where to put them, in housing, because we're all facing housing issues. So we're all facing the same things, and I think being able to have that community to talk to is super helpful.
Do you want to go through the questions now?
Sure.
Okay. So one of the ones that's related to the Main Street Want and Need is in our program brochure, we have a list of services. And so we want to go through that list of services or have you guys go through that list of services and be very clear in the application of what ones in particular would help best meet your mission where you're at now. Is it branding? Is it market analysis? Is it setting up a strategy? Those types of things. So you can see, and we can, if you'd like, Ashley, we can provide descriptions of them. So that way you can just say okay, these are the 3 services that we think would be best beneficial for us where we're at now. And then in the future, we're looking forward to these other ones kind of thing.
You present that to our board, or do you want the city to weigh in on?
I think the city and the board should determine those together, and then in your application, write up that narrative.
And we can send you which questions this is tied to, so that you can go back in and update that application.
Yeah, I have a Word document, Ashley, that I'll take all the notes on, and it'll have the question numbers on there too.
Perfect, thank you.
So my next one is budget. Do you have anything?
Not that's not super nitty gritty that we can talk about with really just Ashley. Some of the maps need to be updated because there was only a map of just the first floors, and we wanted the second floor uses too.
And then that we don't know.
Okay, yeah, and that's totally legit. Yeah. If you could guess, or if you just put is it underutilized? Probably.
Right now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of need for upper story residential improvement.
Yeah.
We're at that cusp where the retail is full and kind of thriving, and the cold storage is now becoming an opportunity.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to incentivize that.
Yeah, perfect. And then we had some questions on the average rent per square foot of if you knew if those answers were pretty close, or if they were I
think I put in $1.
Yeah, $1.
That's what a real estate agent told me, but I don't know
For commercial,
for commercial.
it should be.
Commercial, residential, and
Wasn't it $1.50? I thought it was $1.50 is what Julian said, wasn't it?
Oh, they're probably.
I heard you say $1 too.
They should, so commercial space in town on an annualized basis is about $9 a square foot. 9 to 12, 12 would be very high, but 9 is unannualized, so it's less than $1.
Oh.
So.
So yeah, we can, you'll see in the notes, if it's legit, then it's legit, right? And, it's helpful to know, based on what you know, and it's also helpful to know that you did talk to a real estate agent to get those numbers. Yeah, totally. So that is really helpful. When we saw $1 for each one, we were like, oh, okay. Maybe they're guessing, maybe they don't know, we'll just ask.
The residential one, I'm not really sure.
That one is harder.
Oh,
Yeah.
There's not a ton of comps.
Prices are going up in Buchanan.
Oh yeah, there's some.
Get in while you can.
I saw
Yeah.
Susanna's space, that was at 800, I don't know if that was a.
No, it's $9.50.
Is it 950?
That's Michigan.
And then I saw Cameron just book something for 1,300, but that's a big,
That's a big.
and a big unit, so. I can't remember square footage.
I think Suchi's is around, I don't remember, that's what I
I
based
think
it
it's
on,
in that
because I had a
range,
friend
too.
that was.
And it's really nice, yeah.
Really nice.
oh, okay.
You need to get a hold of Westlands or, 4th Street,
I think they're targeting downtown specifically.
cause they have
though.
studios in
I think that's
you're
what-
downtown,
I think that's what they're referring to, right?
is it just downtown, it's not ran around the city?
We have probably, I bet you at least 30 plus units that are not even,
Yeah,
they're there's potential units.
Right.
$1,300 to $2,000, pretty much the numbers I've heard.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
they're really
the
nice.
rent around town might be actually beneficial because it would influence what's downtown, right? Obviously, if it's high outskirts, if it's a 1,300 to 2,000 outskirts, downtown will be probably a little bit higher than that.
Yeah, actually, the apartments outside of town are like $600 to $700 for a 2-bed, 1-bath apartment.
Actually, it's quite a bit more. If you ask West Winds, I think 2-bedroom is almost $1,000 now.
Yeah.
They're going up exponentially.
And Parkside's about $750 now that they sold for a 1-bedroom.
Yeah, West Winds and 4th Street are all owned by the same entity. The only reason why I know that is my wife worked for him for 20 years.
Well, I know that Cameron's been renting his apartments regularly, and he's charging $1,200, $1,300 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment. So
And that's right on the corner in the city.
that's right in that town.
Well, we have a lot of like nitty-gritty budget questions. Speaking of budget, so I think Laura and I were just talking like it might be beneficial to spend a lot of time on budget, and then we do have some other questions like for the organizational structure portion. So I think if we focus with the city members on budget and organizational structure, we can go through the other like minor details with the board. So Laura's our budget guru.
Right.
She always has lots of
I always
lots of
have lots of
comments.
questions. Want to make sure we understand what we're getting into. So, from what I read in the application and just conversations in general, this position would be a city staff person.
I'm currently seasonal.
So is that how it would remain?
As of right now.
As of right now? Has conversations around that happened as to possibly?
How do we move forward, you mean? Or you mean
Yeah,
moving
yeah.
forward?
Maybe once the organization is able to sustain itself from a fundraising standpoint as we grow, it's probably
I mean, we
That's
haven't
the
had a
economic
conversation.
You haven't, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering if like the vision is that eventually this nonprofit, this 501c3 would be its own entity with staff, board kind of a thing.
Ideally, it would be wonderful to have somebody who
Okay.
wasn't torn between both
Yeah.
positions and wasn't playing for both teams.
Yeah.
You know, it would be great to have somebody who just as a sole director of the Main Street program, yes.
Okay, and then based on what is in the budget here, which was submitted, I'm looking at, it says that the position will be funded by the city
I'm currently
for now,
part of the
Yeah.
city, but it would,
with a 3% increase every year, is the idea?
That's just budget, cost of living increase,
Right.
is how I would look at that figure. I haven't seen what you're looking at, but
Okay.
that's what I would make the assumption.
There's no city employees that are done annually, are there? Tim?
Pardon?
No city employees are done annually, are they? Cost of living? Or are they?
We
For
vote,
the most
we
part.
vote on it. The union is, I guess.
For the most part.
Are they on an annual basis?
And we do our,
I know for a long time they didn't get raises forever, and they get 25% raises.
when we do our budget approval, and then for the next fiscal year coming up, it'll have the employee compensation increases in there.
So then so this is under the staff section within the budget. 2 through 8 talks about like sick leave, vacation, medical insurance, workers' comp, retirement, social security, unemployment. There are no dollar amounts associated with that.
I just put it under the salary.
Okay, you rolled it all in.
Okay. All right, and then it also looks like the Live Buchanan organization has a PO box that's separate from the city, and that's what this dollar figure. Okay, just wanted to clarify that.
Which we have to have this in that.
Oh, got it. Okay. Office equipment and supplies. You have a nominal dollar amount in here. Is that because the city?
Yeah, I have an office here.
So you get most of the office stuff. and printing and things like that can all be done here.
Small amounts.
Small amounts,
Yeah.
okay.
We've gone out for bigger things.
Sure.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then under professional development, travel, it says, TBD, to be determined. Just FYI, we highly encourage 6 to 7, 8,000 in there for budget for travel, conferences, food, that kind of stuff. So we'll definitely have you update that, this budget.
Is that something like you'll be sending us some opportunities, like ongoing education kind of opportunities?
Yeah, so we have, in Michigan, Michigan Main Street hosts 2 workshops
Okay.
every year, and then the National Main Street Center hosts the Main Street Now conference every year. And so select and master level communities are required to go to 2 of the 3 of those. So you can either go to both Michigan or one Michigan, one national. We highly encourage you to go to all 3,
Sure.
but recognize that like timing, budget sometimes doesn't allow for that. But we also like to see not only does a staff member go, but we like to see volunteers, board members attend trainings as well, because this program doesn't work unless it's the grassroots doing it. It's not just staff run.
Yep.
So staff and board members also need that professional development, which is why the 6,000 to 7,000 for budget, so that you can allow for volunteers and board members to attend the training as well.
They don't Zoom them meetings?
No, unfortunately not.
I think probably a lot of that's peer.
Yeah.
It's
It's networking.
You're networking.
You can't network on Zoom.
Yeah.
We can ask that. So now we're on the revenue side of things. So in here, it says year 1 through 5, business owners downtown.
That was a suggestion from my board to do, similar to how the chamber does it, but,
Okay,
Annual dues.
yeah, but I don't, that would be something that we'd have to vote on and decide if that was something we wanted to venture into at all, but that was a suggestion from my board to include.
okay, we can talk more about that with the board then. Same probably with corporate. And then the city. So in the current budget here that's proposed, it says $5,000 from the city.
They gave us, $5,000 to get started, because we needed to like, get a website. There was a couple of office things that they gave us to get started. And that helped us establish our nonprofit and open a website, all the things we need to go get more grants, which is how we ended up bringing in just under 50,000 our first year with them.
Yeah,
In the budget, where is that 50,000?
It's distributed among projects,
Okay, got it.
because they're all grants for
For the-
specific projects.
That makes sense.
Unfortunately, I have not come across any operational grants.
Yeah, they're.
Yeah, they don't really exist.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of that is
Unfortunately.
through like the sponsorships and pledge drive and stuff like that.
And that's a little bit harder in our small, we have very generous people, but in a small town it gets pretty incestuous, so people always ask us
Yes.
for.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, I think the rest we can get clarified at. Do you have anything else in your budget?
The only other question really is like, did you guys do a like sponsorship or pledge drive to ask business owners or residents? No, not yet.
No, we did an education meeting and like a stakeholder meeting, and I think you can tell from some of the feedback you've gotten that it seems not maybe like the right time to ask for them.
Sure.
We're
We
kind
wanted
of
to
at
prove some more value.
Sure.
that critical point where people are finally starting to make money downtown. And so we just want to instill that confidence for like the next leasing period and things before we, introduce tax or something.
Yeah,
the idea.
absolutely. So.
We did get a $10,000 sponsorship from Honor for the incubator, and,
Is that reflected in the corporate industrial
yes, yeah, corporate, that they wanted to see how the first year went, but are willing to pledge more time, so that could be more open for some of the operational costs on the incubator, should we be able to get another, sponsorship of them.
Sure.
But that's our biggest sponsorship that we have.
So from the city's perspective, in this first couple of years are the most kind of critical for an organization to get started, you know. So what is the plan to kind of help Live Buchanan become more sustainable, given the fact that business owners might not be willing to donate, individuals might be over asked, et cetera, and grants are sometimes few and far between.
Well, I think we see this as an extension of our economic development department, and we realize the value in having people who are being proactive in doing these things. We get our excise tax in cannabis every year. We've been splitting that between doing business incentive grants like restaurant incentives or facade grants, and then splitting the other 50% to our parks for quality of life initiatives. I can see doing something different in the future where we would use some of that money towards helping them stay afloat and keep doing what they're doing.
And so from what I've heard in our meetings, we've had pretty regular updates from this group, I would say, maybe quarterly, give or take. I think they want their goals to be self-sustainable and continue to work for that, and then we'd probably be coming in if there's a gap. We'd listen to that, work through that.
And then another question is there currently like an MOU or an agreement between the city and Live Buchanan that has identified like, here are our mutual priorities as a city and Live Buchanan as the de facto economic development agency, and here are the responsibilities that Live Buchanan has for the money that the city gives and for the staff person?
Not officially, I wouldn't say, but because Ashley works for Live Buchanan and the city, and because she's working with Rich, and because we're all kind of focused on the same goals right now, it's working that way because they understand what we're trying to do and the things we're trying to make happen.
Sure.
So it's been working that way, but I wouldn't say there's officially, there hasn't been any official plan.
I could be mixing documents, but I think there was like a red, green, yellow priority panel that you guys provide us on our assessment. Is that different?
That is the redevelopment ready communities.
Okay.
I think they do the red, green, yellow still, or
Yeah,
they
they
used to back in the day, or they do it on Trello now. But yeah,
Not
that
Trello, but this.
I
is
just
there
remember
a
there were a lot.
similar?
Okay, I remember us talking a lot about like, hey, they've already identified where our focus needs to be. Let's make sure we're prioritizing these initiatives.
Yeah, 100%. And that's what we normally do when we bring in a Main Street community is we'll look at, here's the document that already exists. Now can we look at flushing out from here some key priorities that would lead to a 3 to 5 year, we call it a transformation strategy. It's really just an economic development strategy for downtown. But we'll always start with the vision that exists, which is why we like to see like, is the Main Street organization and the city aligned? And that way we can move forward, because the transformation strategy we want to be for not only the downtown organization, but also the city. It's really the community's economic development.
I think to be completely honest, I think if we've failed in any way as a city with this, I think maybe we haven't educated the community enough on the benefits of becoming a Main Street, and that's probably something we need to do a little bit better job at.
I mean, that's a failure for our existing communities that have been with us for 20 years. It's a really hard thing to explain when it's a little bit theoretical, but also you can't see it until you start making progress. And once you make progress, you're too busy making progress to tell the story of what you've done.
Right, and because we're a small community, and I'm sure you've seen this in other communities, but we have falsehoods that are also being spouted around town, and negative things being said about a group that's trying really hard to do positive things. So I think we have to be a little bit more proactive in educating the community on the actual benefits and how things are running. If there's one thing I don't think we've done well enough, that might be it.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick off that. So like, because that's a struggle across the board. What is, when, let's say everything gets qualified for, right? What is the best way we as a city can expose our businesses to those opportunities that you guys provide, whether that's training or grants, or is there some other opportunities that I'm not aware of?
Yeah, so by being part of our program, you'll get access to 2 grant programs. Our Main Street Vibrancy Grant, which is $25,000 to do vibrancy improvements, but most importantly is the Match on Main for small businesses.
Yeah. I've seen that.
And so that's $25,000 for either physical interior rehabilitation or outdoor activation of space, or inventory or point of sale systems or things like that to help with business expansions.
Yeah.
So that's one major benefit. We do have services and trainings that we provide directly to businesses as well. Like we just did a retail merchandising service and webinar in several communities, and then a whole webinar series that you would get access to those links. We can't give them freely, they're behind our paywall with our consultant, but so those are 2 direct benefits. You also get a notch above some other communities for our other incentive programs, which is under Sarah's responsibilities. So those are property redevelopment type of grant and incentive programs.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think it all starts with relationship, right?
Yes.
That's where it's all gonna start, is just having those conversations, getting the businesses to understand that you're not a threat, that you're really here to help them, and educate them of these opportunities and things like that. So we always tell our directors, we expect them on the streets a couple days a week, in and out of businesses, having those conversations.
Please, here's another tool for you. We want to see you take advantage of it. How can we support you in applying for it?
Yeah, and nationally there are some different toolkits, and even on our Main Street Solutions Center, there are toolkits and things like that that can help the organization build relationships with businesses and then have direct benefits. But like Laura said, it all starts with that indirect relationship, but then also having a business owner meeting once per month where you're bringing service providers and resource providers directly to the community to help them and things like that. So the idea of being part of the program and learning best practices can't be undersold. That is the main benefit, is not only do you get access to technical assistance, which we provide over $100,000 to communities in the 5 years at select level, but another probably $100,000 that we've invested in resource building and things like that.
Have it ready to go. I understand.
And then, although, excuse me, I haven't talked in a while, so I've got a problem living in there now. So even though you're not technically a Main Street community yet, what they were talking about earlier with incentives, even just being able to say the community is in the process of actively applying for Michigan Main Street helped sell the Livery project of this is a community that's been very intentional in thinking about what their district looks like, and this project is in alignment with the grand vision for the community. So there's been benefits in that direction already.
Relationship.
Yeah. A couple of other things I wanted to bring up related to transparency and helping tell the story now. I know we've talked ad nauseum actually about posting the meeting minutes, posting the agendas, and I know those are on Live Buchanan's website right now. So that's the first step, but I think having a more formal MOU between Live Buchanan and the city would be very, very beneficial for you. So that way you could say, this is why the city of Buchanan is investing in Live Buchanan, because they are doing X, Y, and Z services for the city that we cannot do ourselves because we don't have the capacity to do. And so we are giving them this money to help our city do these things. The city of Howell has a very similar structure, except for the fact that they have Howell Downtown Inc., which is their nonprofit. They are funded, actually, they have a DDA, but they wanted to have outside sustainability outside the DDA in case the DDA ever went away. So Howell Main Street Inc. was formed. They do get funding from the DDA in perpetuity, but they have an MOU set up as to why and how the DDA is going to continue funding Howell Main Street Inc. So I would highly recommend reaching out to them, and I can set up, I think I might have given you Kate's email, but I can also connect you guys and ask for
Would
that.
it be possible to see maybe a couple of those?
Yeah,
that you could
yeah,
send
yeah. That's what I was
access
gonna
to?
see is maybe Kate can send the agreement that they have.
Just
I think we might have it too. Yeah, just for reference. And then the city of Saline, the city of Saline has actually unfortunately had to cut some funding to their Main Street organization, but Saline Main Street is also a nonprofit. And I think you might have talked to Saline Main Street. They were for a while getting $50,000 from the city to do economic development or to do the Main Street work. Unfortunately, the city had to make budget cuts, so Main Street got a budget cut, but they still get $25,000 a year. So there are definitely examples, but for sure I will send you the MOU that Howell has, because I'm not sure that, I think Celine has one, but, yeah.
Yeah, I think we encourage all our communities with this knowledge to do that.
Well, that point being made, the city of Buchanan's already given Main Street $120,000 a year in wages, above and beyond any cash that we're giving them. So I mean, it's not like, we're supporting full wages of 2 people, plus benefits. So I mean, it's not like, it's hard to justify more when you're already given plus office, plus supplies. But I mean, I sound negative, but I'm not being negative. This is realistic. We are giving Main Street $120,000 a year. Maybe not Rich's full, wages, but a lot of it. He's the only one that's here, and Ashley, her wages are directly related to Main Street. So the city, for the size that we are, and I'm trying to think, I was a truck driver, how? What's the industry in Howell? Does it have any industry in Howell?
In Howell,
They do
have some, but I can't recall like what exactly it is. It's not.
Yeah, I'll look it up. I mean, we got the
It's like
marijuana.
Grand Rapids, right?
Howell is like directly in the middle of the state.
Right.
Or Lansing.
It's on the other
By
side.
Lansing, yeah.
Okay, there's a massive cheese company there, I think.
Yeah.
I have a customer out there on his apartment complex. I think it's like
Well, my
one of the
point
largest
being is
cheese producers in
They
the
have
entire
a
country.
massive employee, and we haven't wrapped our arms around the marijuana. No matter, we haven't. We've been here for 5 years. We haven't done what we could do other than the taxes that we hand out when we get the excise taxes. But as far as the actual owners of the companies, we haven't gone out of our way to do anything to embrace them or the antique dealers for that matter. So I mean, there's some real art, as you can tell, I'm standing alone on this.
Well,
Because,
I'm looking at the Main Street Trend Survey because we did our own budget and salary survey, and the average Main Street budget in Michigan is $235,000, might be $285,000, but it's somewhere around there. So $120,000 just for staff is right on par with about what our other Main Street communities. Plus, then they still need another $150,000 to do projects and programming, because staff isn't going to get your downtown revitalized. They're going to help facilitate that revitalization, but you still need money for projects and programming. So I hear what you're saying, it's a lot of money. However, so is downtown revitalization, and in order to do this work, you do have to have an investment from the city.
but then you used averages, so what's the average budget of the cities that are making that average that much? I mean, when you start doing the numbers, you really gotta look at all the numbers. Because the city of Buchanan does not have a very large budget. So I mean, you gotta compare apples to apples. I mean, Saline, East Lansing, Detroit, we're not even close to comparing. I don't think we can compare ourselves to Howell.
I would say we're pretty close to what Niles is spending.
Yeah, I think you are.
And you're gonna compare yourself to Niles?
And they're right next door to us. Larger population base.
I can send you, we have a budget and salary survey from 2021, so it's a little outdated, but it has all of the communities by population size.
Okay.
So that way you could see exactly what communities of a similar size to the city of Buchanan are spending.
I like being convinced. I really do like being convinced. And the only thing that's gonna convince me is not words, but numbers.
Sure.
Okay? Thank you.
Part of the reason I think we pursued the Main Street path is that we look at successful towns in Michigan and we ask how did they get there, and they got there in part by the Main Street program and by using all the tools in the toolbox. And there is this handoff that we're kind of talking about right now. No community does it quite the same way. And so it's a great problem to have right now of how are you gonna get to the next level, but we wanna follow the Boynes and the Hollands and, these type of cities that, and that's really the valley. And so I think there's a leap of faith we have to take right now, but as you guys pointed out, when it works, everybody's sold, and you can just feel it and see it, and it's there, so.
Yeah, and I think from, our point of view is just making sure that we're comfortable with the structure and that both parties, especially with the unique situation here, that both parties understand what their role is
Yeah.
and how they're gonna contribute and make this successful. So
Yeah.
that's what we're here really today to try to figure out.
Yeah, and I think that having that agreement in place that documents kind of roles and responsibilities, mutual goals and priorities,
And a solidified
would really help solidify it and put in our mind that like, okay, this structure can be sustainable at least for the 5 years at the select level, hopefully longer, but we want to protect our investment, right, of the 5 years at the select level. So we want to make sure that at least we can help you be sustainable for that, and then during the select level, we can help find a structure that would, bring you into the master level.
Okay, so I'm gonna take us off of it.
Go for it.
So, I believe I read, you do have final approval from the feds on your 501c3, right? You are officially a 501. So, in your guys' mind, who is this executive director gonna report to?
Can I,
Yeah, go for it.
they can confirm or deny, but at this point, I report to Rich, city manager, commission, as well as the board, so I have a lot of oversight in that capacity.
And on the board, is it just the chairperson or is it the whole board?
The whole board, almost every decision goes through the whole board.
Okay.
And they give executive approval for things that they know I have to make a lot of decisions over, but
I guess I meant by that, like, is your main contact person. We don't want you to have 11, 12, 13 bosses.
Decision maker.
I do.
We want you, yes. We want to solidify, like, let's hone it in a little bit more so that, like, the board chair is the only person that is directly giving you, it might be a whole board decision, but, like, we don't want you to get, oh, I got a text from Andy, and they said this, and Joan said this. Like, those are two different things. So we want the board chair to be your main boss on the Live Buchanan board, and then like the city, probably Rich or city manager, whoever that might be. Like, let's get you down to at least only 2 bosses.
I would think that it should funnel up to our economic
100%.
development and our city manager.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
help guide and.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
carry out the direction of the rest of the board.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Andy.
And that can be something that maybe is fleshed out in that agreement. Because we also, part of a benefit of the Main Street program is professional development for executive directors and retention of executive directors, because this is, like city managers, a very difficult position. And so we like to ensure kind of protection of those executive directors to ensure that they're not getting 11 different, tasks from 11 different people.
So the sustainability of this ED position, again, it's a unique structure that we're talking about, but does the city feel confident for the next 5 years of being able to fund this position to keep these efforts moving?
I'd say yes, we haven't budgeted for any staff production in that area. And we are coming off of some lower years from spending standpoint, or higher years from spending standpoint.
When I came here, we have an economic development director in Assie's position, and we have funded that every year. And I believe, like with any family, you have some disagreements about things, but I think all of us are for economic development. Dan is, I am, the economic development division is doing a great job, and we intend to see that going forward.
I think that covers it. Are there any questions you guys have about us?
Should be a little more prepared. What is the typical timeline from this stage going forward for approval?
For approval? Well, I have to be honest, so this is gonna be a little unique for us.
Sure.
Our program's been around for 21 years. I've been with it for 21 years, and this will be our first year of not having communities do a presentation like we've done in the past. we're gonna try something new this year. And we brought our team internally together. Sarah was part of it, Julia, who is your RRC planner, was part of the discussions, and then the rest of our team. Sat down, went through the whole application together, you know, thought of these questions based on our overall conversation, and then we come on site. We're doing our on-site visit today, and then we go back, and I believe next week we have another meeting that we're going to follow up with our internal team again. We will give you a couple weeks to turn the application around based on this conversation and questions that we have to update the application, and then we will make a determination. So my hope is probably by the end of May. Yeah, I think is realistic that we will have a determination as to whether we'll be bringing it.
Got some great opportunities coming downtown with us replacing most of downtown, and I'm sure a lot of these businesses want to try to take advantage of opportunities within the program in advance of that or during that, so they can be prepared for the next phase of the community.
Yeah, and then typically, I mean, you know, I'm not gonna lie, it typically takes 2 years for a community to really understand Main Street. It's chaos the first couple month or year and a half, I would say, you know, because we're trying to put the structure in place, we're educating the board, we're educating the committees, the directors, like, it's, and communities just gotta allow that we know what we're doing to get you to that place of being able to really be successful. Because we have had communities when brought in that fight the process, and it does them no good.
Yeah.
It's really exciting. I think, yeah, it's just really exciting, especially because I've been with the program for 21 years. So to see Boyne when they came in for 21 years later to where Boyne is today.
Even Niles, night and
Yeah,
day. Like
Niles.
even I've been with the program for 7 years, and so seeing Niles, what they were 7 years ago to now is like amazing based on what they've done with their transformation strategy and allowing the process to work. So to give you a little bit of an idea of like setting the foundation, so the first year is identifying what your strategy will be. Like Laura said, setting up the committees to understand the projects and programming underneath that strategy, figuring out what your current priorities are now and how that all fits together. Board training and figuring out, okay, how's the board working now? What other best practices can we instill? And it's all around meeting best practices that we know work for downtown management because the program's been around for 40 plus years. We'll then try to get you looking at the national accreditation standards because all of our technical assistance is towards those. And so it's all part of this larger process of just implementing the Main Street framework and best practices. And so we chunk it out piece by piece to help you implement it locally.
Yeah, so I think what would be important for us as a commission board would be to get a really strong grasp of your expectations for our team, because Dean pointed out, we're making a sizable investment in this and we want to maximize it for our community members and businesses.
Absolutely.
So if we have alignment with you guys on what your expectations are, then we can funnel them down through Tim and Rich and Ashley, and I imagine Main Street Board would feel the same way. So just helping us understand that a little better in writing would be great.
Yeah, if we know the expectations, we could do a whole lot better.
Yep.
Yeah.
And,
Absolutely.
we don't want to wing it.
Yeah,
We
sure.
want, we want to know the runway so we can deliver.
Yeah, and I can tell you Main Street's not gonna work without the city or municipal helping and supporting.
I come back
Because you have to have both partners at the table.
because I am coming.
Whether it's a nonprofit or through a DDA or a hybrid model, whatever. You have to be locked in step with each other in order for this to work.
Well, I wanna let it be known too, I mean, I've been fighting this
Okay.
not because of what it is, because I do want the city of Buchanan to go forward. And most people don't understand that because I ask the questions that nobody else, they all refuse to ask. This has not been open. The fact that they're publishing it now, and that's always been my fight. You cannot create an entity like this without open meetings. And the 501 really bothered me because then you're hiding your numbers. Hiding may not be the word that anybody wants to use, but that's basically what it is. And as far as charitable giving, if you're giving to a government entity, you can write it off on your taxes. So I mean, when you ask questions and you don't get answers, it just creates hostility. Now, I mean, I'm not gonna stand in their way by any definition, cause I'm outnumbered 4-1. But I'm not gonna stop asking the questions like I asked today. And if people take it like it's hostile, not my problem. The questions are very sincere, the questions are very direct, and I haven't gotten answers. I've gotten more answers today in 30 minutes, that's why I come. And I get told all the time that I can't believe you're asking that. He doesn't have the right to tell me that, but he insists on it. So I mean, there's a lot of hostility in the commission. But going forward, the city will go forward with or without Main Street. But you know, I have a tough time constantly beating our chest about how much we're doing when I just don't feel we're doing that much. You know, and that's extremely sincere from the people that don't come down here and don't participate in Main Street and are very hostile towards Main Street because of the way the DDA was treated. So I mean, you gotta have good answers. You can't just blow their horn, but you gotta have answers to go at and say, well, yeah, it was a major screw up, but this is what we're doing to try to fix it. You know?
So if we know your expectations, we can help facilitate so everybody's on the up and up about what's going on.
Yeah, and absolutely, and I mean, that's one of the biggest things we preach to our organizations is transparency, right? There's nothing to hide in Main Street. Main Street doesn't come in and take over anyone. We don't take over with the chamber, you know, if the chamber, the CVB, like Main Street's about plugging holes. Where are those holes within the community that need to be plugged, and that's Main Street's mission. We don't wanna take over, we wanna be transparent in the work that we do. So that is definitely what we preach with our.
And I think a lot of the expectations are like what we talked about, right? Having that mutual set of expectations and goals and priorities and vision for the downtown, and then figuring out how is this organization or how is downtown revitalization gonna be sustainable? And how is the city gonna support it?
We can do that.
All right, well, thank you so much for your time, we
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Sorry,
You
I'm
go.
all over.
I'm headed back in a little bit, or eventually. Well, maybe, I don't know. It depends on how it goes. I have another project.
Yeah, should I have your email so I can just send you the budget and salary survey, just download
Sure.
it, send it whenever.
I've gotta go stop somewhere for a half hour. Down here,
Yeah.
There you go.
Doesn't bother me, I sleep very well at night.
Alright, so I just looked and there